Hi, welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Milling, and today we're talking about how to make money with your podcast. Why? Because we love money. Am I right? Who doesn't love money? I love making money with my podcast. And I have a few different podcasts and they make money in different ways. So the first thing that you want to figure out if you want to make money with your podcast is A, is it a part of my marketing mix for my business? Or B, is it the content itself that is going to be generating the revenue? This is the most important part because if you have a business and you want to have a podcast for the business, you don't want it to be the sole revenue generator. It should not be a revenue stream specifically by virtue of the fact that it exists. So we're going to talk about all of this. We're going to break it all down in this episode. And depending on your specific type of content, whether you're a content creator or a business owner, I'm going to give you some ideas to generate money with your podcast. So the first example that I'm going to cover is the Ultimate Creative Podcast, and this podcast supports my business. It's part of my marketing mix. My marketing mix, to break it down to basics, a marketing mix is all of the different elements included in your marketing strategy. So video is a part of my marketing mix. Blogging is a part of my marketing mix. Email is a part of my marketing mix. Social media, Instagram, IGTV, blah, 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 all these things, as well as my podcast. My podcast is a direct conduit for people to get to know me, to understand who I am, and to decide if they want to work with me or not. It's also a way for me to provide a lot of value, as much value as I possibly can, to people who may not quite be ready to work with me, but want to get that free information. And you know me, I love providing free information so that everybody is successful together. This is a huge element of my marketing mix overall. It's one of my core values, just like making sure people know what they can do with all of the tools out there that are available to them. And because I know so much about podcasting, this is what I choose to talk about. So if your podcast is a part of your marketing mix, you may use it to promote your own products or services. You may use it to have guests on that are case studies that show off how well you work with other people and the types of results and transformations that you get for them. When your podcast is part of your marketing mix, it's still generating a return, but the process is a little bit different. It's a little bit slower. Even though I'm providing a lot of free content with my podcast, I know that it's going to have a huge return for me later down the road. So the way that a podcast that is a part of a marketing mix generates revenue is by converting listeners into paid customers down the line. This is a bit of a long game too, right? But what I'm doing by releasing an episode every single week is building up brand loyalty and trust. It's giving people an opportunity to get to know me, who I am, and learn whether or not they want to work with me, so that by the time we have a sales call together or a discovery call together, they already know that they're ready to work with me and they don't have to think about it twice. And they just say, "Can I give you my credit card?" Literally happened today. That was kind of fun. I was very happy about that. And you'll hear Leanne Kim talk about the exact same thing, the exact same type of success that she's had with her podcast, The Business of Thinking Big. It's a really great example of including a podcast in your marketing mix in order to earn revenue. But again, it's a long game. So you do have to be prepared strategically in order to bring a podcast into your marketing mix. But I still would say, regardless of what type of marketing tactics you're implementing, you should be prepared anyway. You should know who your audience is. You should know what your business goals are. You should know what your long-term vision is in order to accomplish these goals. And it's going to become very clear very quickly whether or not a podcast is going to actually generate the revenue that you're looking for. I sell podcasting as a service. So obviously this is like a really good choice for me, but it's also a really good choice for business owners who provide services on a one-to-one level, like health coaches. Health coaches have a really great and unique opportunity to share their clients' transformations through conversation. And so much of deciding to become healthy and wanting to work towards a better feeling you generally is mental. So having a podcast to hear somebody else's mental journey, like what they did, what worked, what didn't work, that is like, it's like just pushing people towards you to say, shut up and take my money, like that meme from Futurama. That's my favorite meme. The easier it is for you to show a transformation with your one-on-one services, the more likely it is that you should be using podcasting as a marketing tool. The other thing I'll say about using your podcast as part of your marketing mix is that you don't have to worry about getting sponsors because you are able to just be your own sponsor. If you're promoting something in the upcoming month or months, all of your episodes can be focused around that specific thing. In addition to that, you can also create promos that can go at the beginning, the middle, the end, whatever of your episode to remind people, like give them a call to action. Go to your website, download your freebie, get into that sales funnel, or just give them a promo code that gives them 10% off for your course just by virtue of listening to the podcast. Keep the airtime for yourself. Why would you spend so much extra energy looking for sponsors or trying to monetize or share that airtime when you could be keeping that all for yourself? And if you have a dedicated following of people who are listening to you week in and week out, they're that much closer to purchasing your product or service. So just hang on to them and don't worry about having somebody else in the airtime that you are creating. So here are just my 3 top ways to make sure that you will generate revenue with your podcast for your business. Create an experience for your listeners that emulates in some capacity how they're going to be working with you, whether it's through coaching, whether it's through a case study and a transformation. Create an experience that showcases that. If you are teaching people how to do something in like a group coaching call, anything like that, turn that content, sneak peeks of it, into your podcast. Create content that's similar to what you want to be selling them. Like if you're going to be releasing a book soon, and it's going to also be an audiobook, maybe you want to focus some of the content around that. Like give them sneak peeks and passages, maybe like read them a paragraph or a chapter here or there, just to give them a little taste of what to expect with working with you. And then finally, of course, record promos to advertise your own stuff and keep that airtime just for you. Okay, the second option is to have your content be the sole revenue generator. And this is the case for a lot of podcasters. I think this is why there's a lot of confusion around like, oh, well, you have to get sponsors, you have to have this many listeners in order to get the sponsors, blah, 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 blah. You do. This is specifically for podcasts that are the product. So a great example is my partner's podcast, The Important Cinema Club. Every single month, I think something like 200 people are contributing approximately $5 to $10 to the podcast in order for them to create bonus content, extra content. So they do Patreon, which is a crowdfunding tool. It's a crowdfunding subscription tool. And this generates a monthly income. Like the entire thing is done. It's paid for. Everything's paid for through the podcast. But here's the thing. Again, they haven't done any sort of sponsorships at all yet. And their very dedicated following is what's keeping them going. And they have people paying them directly. You can do like a monetization share program. So a lot of podcast hosts have these available as well. Anchor FM, which is a Spotify product, they will match you with sponsors who are relevant to your audience, which is a bonus because you don't want to have a sponsor that has nothing to do with your content. Everybody has that, like, get your free Audible book because that program's available to everybody. Literally anybody can sign up for that and start being an affiliate for Audible. At least they used to be able to, and if they don't now, well, that's just crazy. Maybe I should start an Audible. No, I'm not going to. You want to make sure that the ads that you're reading are actually relevant to your audience. You don't necessarily want to have a Squarespace ad if your podcast is about music because what does a website necessarily have to do with music? Maybe you would much rather have a sponsor that is a music store, something like that. So you get an affiliate fee every time you refer somebody to a music store, for example. So when you're looking for these revenue share programs that are offered by the hosts, Stitcher Premium and Stitcher also has one of these programs as well. You want to make sure that it's going to be as relevant to your audience as possible. Otherwise, people are just going to tune out. They're not going to even care. Nobody's going to click. You're not going to generate revenue because it's not relevant. They're just going to skip through, right? One thing I will say, if you sign up with Stitcher, you need to have a minimum of 5,000 listeners, and sponsors typically like it starts at 1,000 listeners. If you have a brand new podcast and you're starting this from scratch and you are on your way to getting a lot of listeners but not quite there, banking everything on sponsorship is kind of a recipe for disaster. So another thing you could do is just create products that are similar to your show, that are relevant to the people that are listening to your show. Again, a great example would be my partner, Justin DeClute. That guy, he's a smart guy. He started an indie Blu-ray distribution label called Gold Ninja Video, and everyone that is a patron of the Important Cinema Club gets first access to these new Blu-ray releases every single month. And so he has created a product. It's every month there's a new one that comes out. The patrons get really excited. They sell out like instantly. They sell out so fast because they're like a limited short supply, like numbered copies. He really understands his entire audience very, very well. And he has created an entire formula with multiple revenue streams, not just the podcast, to support his income. So think about whether or not your content could be molded in a different way, and it's not just contingent on sponsorships. And I know I'm probably I sound like I hate sponsorships. I'm sure they're great. I've just never really been interested in trying to pursue them myself because I want to be able to provide people with content and information and ads that are relevant to them. So therefore, I would highly suggest, if you're going to make your podcast the product, the content is the product, find ways to connect directly with your audience versus connecting through something else with a sponsorship. Just try a crowdfunding subscription service. Ask people to just donate $5 to you through PayPal or Venmo. I know in America they have Venmo. Venmo yourselves. I think we should get Venmo here, maybe. Anyway, find some different ways, find some more creative ways to generate income. You could even do like drop shipping, like some merch, that kind of stuff. That works too. When you have a very dedicated following of people and you're constantly engaging with them, they will want to engage more with your products. And of course, one of the really top ways to make people feel like they're being engaged with is to say their names on your podcast. So if you get a new Patreon subscriber, say their name, say thank you for subscribing at the $5 a month level. You're going to get blah, 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 this extra content. Thank you for subscribing at the $10 a month. You're going to get blah, blah, blah. Say it out loud so that other people can hear this who are listening, who may be thinking like, oh, I don't know if I want to subscribe or not. And then they're going to the more that they hear other people are subscribing, the more that they hear what other people are getting, they're going to get excited about it and they're going to want to be a patron as well and be a part of that community. Like, you are community building. That's another thing you can really think about too. You can have a Slack community, or you can have a Discord community or a Facebook group, something that makes people feel connected and engaged with. All that to say, if you are thinking about starting a podcast or using your podcast as another revenue stream, but your podcast should be a part of your marketing mix because it's your there to support your business, just keep in mind, it's possible, just keep in mind the fact that it's going to be basically a full-time job on top of running your business. So the other side of this would be just making the podcast your full-time business. And that's also an option. When your podcast is the product, that is totally an option. I hope these ideas have helped you to figure out how to make money with your podcast, how to generate some additional revenue with your podcast, and all of the different entry points that your clients, your customers might have to give you money, because that's what a lot of us are in it for. And when I say a lot of us, I mean we're all kind of in it. So we got to make money. We got to do it somehow. These are some ideas to do it with podcasting. And I will see you the next time. Thanks for listening.